Hey everybody, this is Paige from Mosaic Moments, and today I am doing a demo of the Frontier die set. So this set comes with this die right here. It measures 4x6 squares on the grid, and there's all these little areas you can fill in, and there's different ways you can fill them in. I'm going to show you one way today. There's also this layering die you can place in the middle here. This die is optional, but we provided it for you if you're interested in using it. There's also these filler dies, so there's this one that fills in the corners, plus a layering die. So if you want to layer something in those corners, you can do that as well. And there's these triangle dies that'll fill in those small triangle spaces, and there's four of those, four triangles all together, so you can cut all four in one cut. Alright, now that you have been introduced to the die set, let's go ahead and get started. Today I'm using the Sizzix Big Shot die machine, and this is the 4x6 Frontier die here. And as usual, I have a piece of cardstock that's a little bit bigger than the die itself, and I'm placing it in the machine at an angle because we find that the machine cuts by distributing pressure over the die, and we find when we place the dies in at an angle, it distributes that pressure better, and you tend to get a better cut versus if you just put the die in straight through. Alright, now I rolled it through the machine. Now I'm going to take out all of these excess pieces. I will need those. You can save those for other projects. And I do need to get this frame part out. As you can see, it's stuck inside that frame. So when this happens, I like to grab my sharp tweezers and poke them through a hole. It's usually located in one of the corners, and that'll help you poke out that corner of the die cut, and you can pull the rest out of the metal die. So be really careful. This is a pretty thin die, so make sure you don't bend or rip it by accident when you get it out of the die. So this is what the cut should look like once you get it out of the metal die, and I have this white sheet here so you can see it better. Alrighty, let's go to the next step. Now I'm going to cut the background that'll go into the center section right here, and usually I recommend just using a solid sheet of cardstock. I am using pattern paper, and I could cut it this way in the diamond direction, but I'm actually going to turn it to the square direction like I'm doing here. As you can see, the square's kind of lined up in the corner, and this way I don't have to waste as much paper. And some of you may have a pattern paper that you need to keep it in the diamond direction because maybe the pattern paper needs to go in a certain direction. This one was really flexible in that I could turn the die and it would still look about the same. But if you want to save on paper, you just gotta turn the die over a little bit to put it in that square orientation, and that'll help you not waste as much paper. Alright, now I'm rolling it through the machine, and of course I just have enough paper here to fill in that middle section. So now that it's gone through the machine, that cut is right here. For my layout, I decided to layer my photos over that center section. So I have the layering die here, and you want to make sure that you have it in the diamond direction, not the square direction. If you turn it just a little bit, it'll be a square. So make sure you have it in the diamond orientation. And then, of course, just like the other steps, I'm going to roll it through the machine here, and it's very quick, very simple. I'm going to be cutting with the same die on 4, or really 3 other photos. There'll be 4 photos altogether. Alright, and here is the diamond cut that'll be in the middle of the Frontier die frame. Now I'm going to cut with this corner die that fills in each corner of the Frontier die. And just like with many of our other dies, you want to make sure that when you cut your photo that this die is placed in the right direction you want your photo to cut. You don't want it to be upside down or sideways. So in this case, I made sure that the little, the cutoff corner here was on the bottom right. So you just want to pay attention to that and turn it in other directions. And it's really important to plan your photos beforehand to make sure your subjects are going to fit into this small space. As you can see, I have a photo here where this was taken at a distance. Now I'm going to show you how I cut with another photo, and you can see here I put it in the opposite direction. Actually, I'm still deciding, but as you can see, you turn it different ways and you're going to get a different shape cut every time. So make sure again that you plan out your photos and make sure you, when you do finally go cut your photo, that it's going in the right direction. So I have that corner that's kind of cut off on the top left this time. And I'm going to be doing that with the rest of the photos, or I should say following these same steps with the rest of the photos I'll be cutting with this corner die. Next, I'm going to cut with these little triangle dies, and for the most part, you probably will use some simple cardstock or pattern paper. This one I'm going to line it up because I want to cut these specific symbols. They were small enough to fit into these triangles, and so I'm carefully lining up the triangles to get those icons, and I have this one pointed the opposite direction. I'll show you close up here. So I have these other two symbols I'm trying to get in the opposite directions because I want them to be diagonally on each corner of the, or I guess each part of the, anyway, it'll make sense when I put it together. So again, most pattern paper isn't probably going to be this way, but this was so tiny. I was like, oh, I could put those in those triangles and get the designs in one cut. So there you go. Those are my little triangles. So now I have all of my die cuts. So I'm going to go ahead and start gluing the back of this one. I do have a sheet of paper here so I don't get glue everywhere. And I'm just taking my time here, putting the glue around each little edge and each little corner. And you just want to be careful. It is a pretty thin die, so make sure you don't rip it, or, well, probably won't rip it, but you could accidentally bend it and then you have a little crease in the die cut, so be careful with that. It is a fairly sturdy die though. Anyway, now I'm going to carefully place on the lines in this corner here, and just take your time and make sure that top line and left line are lined up and that the die doesn't look too warped. And now I'm going to go ahead, I glued 3 other ones down, so I'm going to go ahead and place them on the grid. I did speed up the video here, but I'm going to say take your time when you're gluing this down, because like I said, they're pretty thin die cuts. All right, in the end, it should look like this, and you could probably see how all those little corners in each part of the frontier die line up with each other, so that's really cool. That is one neat effect about this die. Now I'm gluing down the middle sections of the front tier die. So I just placed my background piece that fits right in the middle, and now I'm gluing down my photograph that is the layering size, so it's a little bit smaller so you can see that pattern paper going around the photo. And I'm just being really careful. Just take your time. You kind of have to eyeball it, but as long as all the edges around it look even, you know you're good. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and glue down the rest of these backgrounds here. This is a pattern paper. By the way, the pattern paper shown for this layout is from PhotoPlay. They have a very fun outdoor collection that I used for this page. And these photos are from Yellowstone National Park, if you are wondering. All right, I have all of the, I guess, the background piece on each center, and now I'm just finishing up the center by gluing down each of the photos cut with the layering die. So I'm all finished now, and take your time and make sure each photo is centered within that diamond shape. All right, I just wanted to show real quick how small this layer corner is. So this is the layering die for the corner, and as you can see, it has quite a big gap around it, and I just wanted to put this out there and let you get a visual of how small that corner really is, just so you're aware before you use it. Now I'm just filling in all of the corner portions of the Frontier die, and I didn't plan out exactly where all of these were going to go. What I did was, so each of these corners, there's 4 of them, so I knew I needed 4 of each orientation of the corner. So that's basically what I did, is just cut 4 of each of the different rotations of the corners, and now I'm just kind of placing the photos randomly and seeing where they look good or where they don't look good. So you can plan it exactly before you start cutting, but like I said, I just cut 4 of each rotational direction of these corner dies, and now I'm just kind of figuring out where it looks good, and I think I'm pretty much done. So all of these photos were printed at a full 4x6 size. Sometimes I print them smaller, but these photos were taken at a far distance, and I was able to crop the 4x6 photos down to this size, which is pretty awesome. Now I'm going to glue down one of the corners just to show you, and I get the corners, those sharp edges really well, especially, and I put a little bit of glue in the middle, and that's all set. And I'm going to go ahead and glue the rest of them. All right, all of my corner photos are glued down, and now I'm going to glue down the triangle pieces. And I don't know if you remember, but I showed how I had the little corner dies in one direction for the bear and the mountain symbols, and then I put it in the other direction for the other 2 symbols. And so I'm putting them diagonally across from each other. So I hope that makes sense. Earlier I didn't explain it because I felt like you had to see it, but that's how I planned it out, is I cut them in the diagonal directions, and I'm placing them across, diagonally opposite of each other. So, and I did use the Xyron Create Sticker Machine. I do talk about that a lot, and I love it for little die cuts such as these little triangles. It makes it so much faster to glue each one. All right, and I'm so far loving this design. It's really neat. All right, to finish off my Frontier page, I'm just going to add a little bit of something in the middle. So this was cut with the 2x2 die, the background from set A, and I'm using the 2x2 Craftsman die because it reminds me of the Frontier die, has kind of a similar look to it. And I also cut these little filler pieces with the Craftsman die with the same pattern paper I'm showing around the layout, and I like the bear in the middle, and I wanted to show more of the paper. I just am readjusting because I glued it on the wrong way. But I don't think that it really needs those corner pieces. I think I just wanted to use more of that paper because I really like this paper. But I am taking those corners out. I think it looks better just having the little bear in the middle there. So I think that looks really good. So if you're looking for another die to go with Frontier, Craftsman is a great set that kind of matches. All right, here is my final layout, and yes, we have reached the end of today's demo. I really love the Frontier die. It's one of my new favorites. I say that about a lot of dies, but they're all just so good. But I love Frontier. It is a great one, and like I said, if you are someone who likes the Craftsman dies, if you haven't seen them, go to snapandcrop.com and check them out. They're a really nice design. If you like those dies, I think you'll also like Frontier. And there's other ways you can use the Frontier dies. I just showed you one way, but it's a lot of fun to use. And as I said, all those little corner sections line up with each other. So if you turn your eye around rotationally, look at all the lines, they line up with each other, which is really cool. All right, thank you so much for watching today's demo. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, and I will see you next time.